Hello to the Vision Business community. Today I have Kamal, a personal friend of mine, Kamal Bengougam. He is the commercial director of Eversys AG. Is that correct, Kamal?
Well, it's pretty good. I'm the group commercial director
Group
of a
commercial.
Swiss-based company called Eversys AG.
Yes, and tell us a little bit about Eversys AG and what it's into before we launch into this current situation that we're facing.
Well, Eversys are a manufacturer of what you call super automatic espresso machines. And they're a B2B company based in the French part of Switzerland with started in 2009, so just over 10 years. And we've built quite rapidly a network of partners in about 45 different countries. And we've gone pretty much from zero in 2012 to about 50 million US dollars, 5,000 machines in turnover in 2019.
And in no small part due to your efforts, Kamal, because I remember I was there in the beginning with you, and I've seen the growth of that company, and it's been absolutely amazing. So congratulations.
Well, thank you. But a company is never, one person is never responsible for the whole thing. I think sometimes one person takes the credit, but the responsibility of the success is very often caused by many, many people. And in our case, it is very much that. We've got a fantastic team. We've built a fantastic team. When I joined the company in 2011, I was employee number 9.
Yeah.
And now we are headed towards the 200 mark, and I do not know all of their names.
Yeah, it is amazing. Now, just a little bit on the machines. They're actually world's best. I know, personally speaking, world's best espresso machines, fully automatic, don't require the skills of a barista, and yet can produce coffees faster and in better quality and more consistent than a barista.
Well, that's the vision. When you launch any business, you need to have a point of difference.
Yes.
If you're going to be a Me Too business, you're just going to split the market and everything is going to become commodity based. So when we started with Eversys, I wanted to have a hook. What makes us different? And I think it was that. If you can make, if you go around the world, everyone wants a machine that looks good, like a traditional machine. But you also need, coffee is a business. It's not just an art form. And I think people got confused for a while about it becoming an art form. And as a business, it requires consistency. It can't be depending on one person behind a machine. So we basically brought that in. So we tried to set up what I call a blue ocean strategy, where we set ourselves in between the traditional and the super automated world and created a bit of a hybrid.
Well, you did a great job. I know that a lot of the other companies that have been traditionally leaders in the space of super automatics are now playing catch up. How do you think they're coming along?
Well, I think the market we play at, which is the specialty coffee market, is not the biggest market. So a lot of our competitors try to sell a lot of smaller machines.
Yeah.
We want to be at the top end, both in terms of quality and productivity. So even though some of them have tried to launch comparable models, it takes great vision and many, many years to develop what we've got. And we've now just launched a limited edition Cameo, and we don't call it a super automatic anymore. We call it a super traditional machine. And I think this is, when I look at, in view of the current pandemic, what is the new normal going to look like? I think super traditional machines will play a major role in what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, imagine. I mean, I don't know what it's like for you over there in the UK. You're based in the UK. Eversys is based in Switzerland. I guess the same things are happening there that are happening here. A lot of the cafes are now closed. A lot of the workers have been laid off, and for a cafe to be consistent with their coffees now would be so much easier with a super automatic machine rather than having to keep 1 or 2 baristas on for a 5-day shift.
I think businesses like independent coffee shops have struggled for many years to be profitable.
I agree.
Because they have not reassessed their method of doing business.
Correct.
They thought, if I buy a traditional machine, put it on a counter, have a couple of bread roll on the side, and play some decent music, I'm going to be rich. But it's not that. It doesn't work like that. You need to be able to manage your cost. You need to have what I call a unique competitive advantage. You need to be different. And what we offer as a company and as products, we give you the ability to be far more productive, far more consistent. We don't diminish the qualitative side, but also you can control your costs because you don't need so many people delivering your product. And you can deliver it in so many places. So let's say, for example, that you could have a self-service operation at an airport or at a train station. You're basically making money on 12 square feet of space with no labor cost. So your rent is minimal. Your productivity is very high because you're at an airport or a train station with high footfall, and your costs are hugely limited. You could still promote a quality experience. And I think what's going to change the most over the coming years would be what I call instead of empowering the barista to give you what he or she thinks you should have, the customers will be able to choose what they want. Now imagine this, you come to a machine and you say, well, I want a Kenyan blend, or I want a bit of Kenyan together with a bit of Guatemalan bean. I want it to be strong. I want to have 2 or 3 shots. I want to choose my milk. I want to do it like this, like this, like that. And then you become, you have your own misery of choice.
Yeah, that is remarkable. I know that when I suggested years ago, when I think it was Coles started placing automatic machines in their service stations, I suggested to someone in the coffee industry that they potentially represent a real threat to the industry, because eventually they'll get better. The machinery will get better, the delivery system will get better, and they're also quite affordable compared to your upscale cafe. And they're now reaching a point where the quality is equivalent to what you find in an upmarket cafe, and it's at the push of a button by the consumer. It's remarkable.
We look also at the time like now, pandemic, right?
Yes.
So nobody wants to touch, hug anything.
Yes.
So I'm working on a project at the moment where all you have to do, you have an app on your phone. You get next to the machine, the screen comes onto your telephone. You choose your product, pay for it. All you have to do is pick up your cup and leave. You don't touch anything.
That's phenomenal.
So
I hope you didn't give up some secrets there.
No, but it's very true, and so we give you the ability to be far more creative. See, business, in my opinion, it's about innovation and creativity. Traditional machines have been fantastic in innovating in the area of design. They've developed phenomenal brands. They've also educated the market in a way we could never do it. But when you look at, the coffee industry goes in terms of waves. The 5th wave, which is allegedly the wave that we're on now, is called the business of coffee. And coffee must be a business. Any business can only be defined by its profit.
And by its numbers, of course.
Yeah. And I think there's a 6th wave coming. And that 6th wave, in my opinion, is about a transformation, a paradigm shift towards more automated solutions. Automated solutions used to be a bad word because they were synonymous with a lack of soul, bad quality, plasticky, bad design. And a lot of those machines are still like that.
Yes, they are.
And then you get a company like Eversys that comes and then transforms the landscape. And so it doesn't have to be that.
Well, I mean, what a remarkable place to be in. I mean, transformation can turn on a dime, on one situation. Yeah. Let's talk about the current situation, the COVID-19 pandemic. How has it been affecting your business? How has it been affecting you? And how do you see it playing out for the industry and for business in general? I know it's a broad sweeping range of questions.
It's a very good question. It'll probably take me about 2 hours to answer it.
I know. We can talk for hours.
I'll break it down into 3 parts. We'll look at the market, then I'll tell you about me as an individual and the company, and
Yes.
where I think the new normal might position itself. When I look at the market, the independent coffee shop, as we knew and loved, is gone.
I think
They've
so
been
too.
wiped out overnight globally, because they had to shut down. They don't have the capital. Most of them were living from hand to mouth. They're gone. Are
Yeah.
they going to come back and take the same risk, when they probably already have debts at the bank for their equipment and all that? I'm not sure that that will take place. So who is surviving today? You mentioned the Coles of this world. Those are the guys who are surviving
McDonald's.
because, well, yes, they have critical mass, they have space, they have a strong balance sheet, they are geographically well spread. So they will survive. And also companies like Coles and companies like convenience store 7-Eleven, you see it all over the world. They're not only surviving, they're prospering.
They are right now.
If you sell food or toilet paper, or in the US, if you sell ammunition and weapons, you're in business. You can do great. So I think the market that's prospering is the market that we're in. So from a perspective of the market, I think that the landscape will change. The second thing is we as a company, we have our own challenges. We have to follow the norms of the WHO, whether you like them or not. And for us, what that means is we have to instill a discipline in our factory that protects people and
Yes.
protects all of our stakeholders. So, we are not as productive as we could have been because, we moved into a new factory, which is fantastic. So we have now 15,000 square meters of space. So we can produce more machines. People can be spread around. They don't have to be so close to each other. I think it's 7,500 square meters of space, not 15,000 square meters of space.
That's still a lot.
Yeah. And then, we're really careful because our people, are really our core asset. So we've been able to continue producing machines at this time, and our clients are the Coles of this world, the 7-Eleven of this world, the Musgraves, Frank and Honest of this world. Guess why? Because they're prospering.
Yes.
So we're still able to provide machines for those chains. So the impact on us has been more, I think, regional. I saw this pandemic coming as 3 waves. The first wave was the wave that came out of Asia. And funnily enough, you were not part of it. You sort of followed Europe. The second wave came out of Europe, and I think also hit you.
Yeah.
And the third wave is now hitting North America. What I see now is Asia is almost 80-90% back to normal. So we're beginning to see some orders coming again out of Asia. I think those orders will carry us through probably June, July time, at which point I'm hoping that Europe will be coming out of its wave. And then by the time that carries us through August, September, I expect that the whole world will be in a position of normality. And then we should be getting orders from North America, which then enables us to finish our year in style. How did this thing impact me? I'm someone who travels every week. I jump on a plane on a Monday, come home on a Thursday or Friday, and I'm always face-to-face with clients or in my office in Switzerland. I've had to relearn how to work. So this is a new working method. And the funny thing is, it's far more efficient because I don't have to travel. I don't have time zone sleeping things. I can sleep in my own bed. I can work from home. And I think the whole thing about all being in an office will have to be rethought. Because if you can be efficient working from home and connecting like we are now, I have about a dozen meetings like this every week. I have a board meeting next Tuesday like this, and you can present your documents the same way you normally would, and you do it efficiently with lesser costs. So I think it is food for thought, but it's really changed me in a good way. I'm at home, I have a normal life. My wife hasn't kicked me out. My dogs haven't bitten me. So life is good. And the fact that I'm at home actually makes me stronger, fitter, and therefore when I work, my productivity is quite high. Do I miss having meals with clients and colleagues? Yes. I think that will never change. I'm old fashioned. My wife just calls me old, but I prefer old fashioned. And I like being with people. Like when we met in Sydney a couple of months ago, I really enjoyed that. And I think that virtual relationships can only carry you through if you already have an existing physical relationship to begin with.
That's
You
right.
can't start from scratch.
It's very,
The
very difficult.
Yeah, the last part of your question is what does the new normal look like?
Yes. What, in
If
your opinion?
people, well, if people think that after this you can go back to like it was before, CBD has extended way beyond California. I just don't think that will happen. I think it's like after any tragedy, there is a sacrifice to pay that precedes what I call a victory. I see the next 2 years as being years of rebuilding. I don't think there'll be years of growth and prosperity. People who put their monies in the markets are just speculators. They're putting money because the price is low and they're hoping that there's only one way it can go is up. So I get that. But I think the real business, the small to medium sized business, will have to rebuild. They'll have to rethink the way they worked. They'll have to pay their debts. They'll have to be more creative. How can I build a business once more that is compellingly different than the others and where I can manage my cost and be more profitable? So I think in the short term, businesses will focus more on short-term profitability than I'm going to invest and take a risk and then at some point I'll make money. I believe that cost control will become a bigger part of business as we know it. And I think also creativity. Don't just open something that's just like everybody else's. Don't copy. Because that means that when there is a crisis, you'll become a victim. The business is a jungle. Survival of the fittest is definitely a rule that applies in business. So if you're going to be taking a risk, calculate your risk. Make sure you've got everything going, for you. It's like going on a sailboat. Make sure you've got the wind in the right place and that you're on the right boat.
That's very good advice. I mean, what do you think will happen with the nature of the cafe footprint? Do you think it will become smaller and move to possibly the virtual world or the delivery world, or do you think
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at, I think delivery, yes. I don't think we should ever lose the whole point about a coffee shop is not just the coffee; it's the relationships, the communities, and we don't want to lose that. So I think what I see is maybe smaller footprint coffee shops that are just producing coffee and food, and then big terraces where people can still have that community, but maybe in a safer environment, with more space between people and where the costs are lower. That's what I see. I think other modes of delivering coffees would definitely become stronger. So I think airports, train stations will be self-served. That makes absolute sense. You make a lot more money than if you have employees and a big surface. I think that convenience stores and places like that will prosper. Office coffee will prosper, and delivery of coffee. I was in China a couple of years ago, and there's a company called Coffee Box that do delivery of coffee, and I had a meeting with them. So before the meeting, me, George, I ordered it because I wanted to see what it was like. And then as the guy arrived for the meeting, my coffee gets delivered and I have his coffee in my hand. I was astonished how good it was.
And it was quick.
Quick. The packaging was extraordinary. The temperature was great. It's all about convenience. I think in life, you have to be able to segment things. When you're on holiday and you have time, you can sit somewhere and watch the girls go by.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're in a hurry to go to a place, does the experience really matter? Do you really want to queue and wait 10 minutes to have someone make
No.
you a coffee who doesn't even look at you in the eye? What do you want? You tell him, he makes you coffee, you wait, you take it, you go. Well, why, if the quality coming out of a self-service machine is the same, why not do that? Why because there is no relationship. You're not getting any value out of the person because he's not speaking to you.
Mm. Mm.
And he's not informing you. So you might as well go to a machine. And I think this is where people buy on the internet things that do not require a relationship. Whenever I've bought a suit made by a company that says, give me your measurements and all that stuff, and you order it online, it never fits. So I'm never doing that again. I want to go to a place, I want to try it on, and they measure me and then it fits. So, but like a CD or a coffee, or we have food being delivered now every 2 weeks. I wouldn't do that with certain ingredients, like my meat, my fish. I want to see it. I still want to experience that. That's me, because cooking matters to me. You look around my kitchen, it's all copper pans, and but for most people, they don't care. For you, it matters. You're like me. You want to see it. This morning, as you called me, I was queuing for French bread in the rain because they only allow one person at a time. But I came home with French bread and croissant. That matters to me.
Yes. Look, I certainly agree with you. Look, I have the jump on most of the viewers or our listeners here. Tell us a little bit about the article that you're just about ready to publish. And
I write for Global Coffee Report.
Yep.
And I had written an article called The Sixth Wave, about the next wave of coffee becoming more super traditional. But because of this pandemic, I decided 2 weeks ago I just felt this wave of emotion in me. And I thought, well, I can't publish about something, a story that is not topical.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking about this whole pandemic, and I wrote an article called The Geometry of Life. And what I mean by the geometry of life, if we look at our past, our present, and hopefully our future, you can see that there is a geometry, and that things that happen there is an order in things. And when you break that order of things, you get punished. So I think that when you look at all the negative events in the history of mankind, it is that, there is a crisis caused by a root symptom, whether it's greed, whatever it is. Something comes out of the heart of man and promotes destruction. And in the geometry of life, what I talk about is times like these, you have three choices. You can stick your head in the sand and pretend that it is not there.
Yes.
That doesn't work. You can become a victim because you think it's going to hurt less, and it never does. Whenever you try that, it's like going to the dentist and you think, well, I'm going to take the Novocaine because it hurts less. Soon as you leave the dentist, your mouth and your head are in different time zones. So you might as well take the pain. And I think the third part is to fight. And I think that, to me, fighting is actually the only option you have. How do you fight? As a small business, as a small coffee shop, you fight by being wise, by being creative in the way you set yourself up. You go to your bank, you create a compelling story, you stay in touch with your customers, you reinvent your whole landscape. So because people can't come to you, why don't you deliver to them? Why don't you recreate your business the way that it works? So I think the world, when you're in a crisis, it's the time for what I call heroes to come to the fore. And a hero is not like Sylvester Stallone with all the ripped muscles, the Hollywood stuff. That's just a film. A hero is basically a person who has the courage and the conviction and the vision to go beyond what they've done so far. Someone who is not afraid to take risks, someone who is not self-serving, and someone who determines that, you know what, I'm going to become a hero. And this is the opportunity that I see. Anyone listening to this who has been maybe harboring a vision or anything like that, something that comes out of a passion for years, but never done anything about it, the difference between where they are and where they ought to be is self-belief. You know, and self-belief is not something you're born with, it's something that you develop. And you can only develop it by doing. You know, so it's a bit like all those values, like courage, you're not born with that, you develop it. So you take a small step, you start believing in yourself, and then you take a bigger step. So in everything in life, it's like when you're young, you think, am I going to ask out the most good-looking girl in the school? Well, maybe I'm going to start, you know, and it's the same with wine. When you start with wine, you don't drink Chateau Petrus. You begin at a lower level, but then you build.
Yes.
So life is a journey of multiple steps. You don't have to take them all at once. You only have to begin with one.
And ironically, it's usually through tough times that ideas are forged.
I think so. I wrote an Easter message. Our Easter is a week before yours.
Yep.
I don't know which is true, but I think the outcome, I think, is the same.
There are two Jesuses. Didn't you know that?
Yes, I think the Jewish one had a Greek twin. And the thing is, the story is the same. There is a vision, there's a promise, there's a sacrifice, and there's a victory. And life is like that. You know, a victory without sacrifice doesn't exist or doesn't last.
Correct.
So if you win the lottery and you've never had the sacrifice of earning that money, most of the people who win the lottery lose their money within 2 years.
They do indeed.
And by that time, they've lost all their friends.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kamal. I mean, they're very wise words, and we'll have to cut it off here. But I wanted to thank you very much for your time, and I genuinely believe that our listeners will get a lot out of this. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Have a great day down under. I love coming to Australia.
We're looking forward to seeing you soon. Take care.
Bye bye.